Hello, my name is Bob Mann, and I would like to take a few minutes to discuss one of the more important speakers of the 20th century. According to American Rhetoric, Dwight D. Eisenhower performed one of the speeches considered to be in the top 100 of all time. But he also conducted speeches during a few of our most significant historical events concerning World War II and the beginning of the Cold War. Eisenhower, or Ike, as he preferred to be called, made career choices which required public speaking throughout his life. As a student at West Point, he was required to give public reports and lead students through educational endeavors. When he moved on to be an officer in the military, he frequently was required to speak publicly to his soldiers in the field. As he moved up in rank, his responsibility and types of speeches became more diverse as his audience ranged from small groups of soldiers in the field to thousands of troops and foreign military leaders while directing invasions. When the war ended, he found himself teaching until politics took over, and his speeches changed again to meet the requirements of his new challenges. Ike was born October 14th, 1880, in Denison, Texas. But he grew up on a small farm in the poor farming community of Abilene, Kansas. He was fortunate to have a United States Senator to nominate him to attend West Point. But his mother, Ida, was a Mennonite and a conscientious objector to both war and violence. Eisenhower was eventually accepted to attend West Point in 1911, which gave Ike the perfect opportunity to convince his mother to let him go. It is said later she would cry when he went off to war as a U.S. officer and soldier. Dwight Eisenhower was promoted to Brigadier General in 1939 and was the Supreme Commander in Operation Overlord that included D-Day, the beach landings with our allies to perpetuate the demise of Hitler and the Third Reich in World War II. In 1952 and again in 1956, he was elected to the presidency. He passed away in 1969 after a long bout of illness. Eisenhower had a guiding principle for all of his speeches about always remaining positive, which is evident when he said, "I firmly determined that my mannerisms and speech in public would always reflect the cheerful certainty of victory, that any pessimism and discouragement I might ever feel would be reserved for my pillow." Now, regardless of whether he was speaking with the troops before an invasion or discussing the challenges of a country's future, he generally remained upbeat and positive in all of his speeches. As discussed previously, Eisenhower's style changed as his responsibilities and goals were influenced by his position within his career. His speeches as a student were different from the speeches he performed with the troops. As a soldier and later as a leader, he spent his free time among his audience listening to their concerns and ideas. It is said when he had slow days during his leadership of the troops, he would walk out into the field and go to the front and talk to the guys to find out what their issues, concerns, and worries were. He carried these listening skills with him into politics, where his campaign and presidential speeches reflected the concerns of his constituents. He used these skills to persuade the voters to vote for him and then to convince his audience to believe in his policies. One issue the press and his opposition had with his speaking style was they believed his speeches were inarticulate and contained garbled syntax, a trait mostly noticed in his political speeches. But his overall charm and high regard from the public overcame these negative traits. As time has passed, his antagonists and historians believe These traits may have been exaggerated to disarm his opponents and draw his audience closer to him. They believe he turned what most would deem as a negative to be a positive. Since Eisenhower's speeches changed throughout his career, I decided to highlight his farewell address to describe his style and organization. I chose this speech because it is a culmination of all of his experience. Others may argue previous speeches may have been more important, like his speeches to incorporate mechanized armor into the military, which has changed battlefield strategy forever. The inspirational speeches that led his fighting forces to victory on D-Day. Campaign speeches that convinced a nation he should be their president, not once, but twice. And his State of the Union addresses, which set the direction of a nation through the first 2 decades of the Cold War. All of these speeches would have been excellent examples of informative, persuasive, or educational speeches that he had given. But his farewell address has been increasing in historical significance due to its content. Historians are impressed with the content, but I will focus on his mechanics and delivery. The address is a self-commemorative and persuasive speech organized in the identify a problem, offer the solution format. He uses the repetition of the word balance to highlight a key theme in the speech.
The need to maintain balance in and among national programs. Balance between the private and the public economy. Balance between the cost and hoped for advantages. Balance between the clearly necessary and the comfortably desirable. Balance between our essential requirements as a nation and the duties imposed by the nation upon the individual. Balance between actions of the moment and the national welfare of the future. Good judgment seeks balance in progress. Lack of it eventually finds imbalance and frustration.
Throughout the address, he keeps a rhythm, uses concrete words, sprinkles in a few similes, and adds imagery to hold the interest of the audience. When he discusses the great advances in technology, he compares the image of the tinker in the garage to huge scientific laboratories. Images his audience are familiar with, but helps explain the complex concepts. Ike held positions in life that required good public speaking skills. It would have been impossible for him to reach the heights of his career without them. He needed to decide when to use the informative, the persuasive, the educational, or the commemorative speeches throughout his career. All of them important in their due right at the right time. So to close, I would like to borrow a couple of techniques Ike used in his speeches. Although Ike's speeches may not have been as articulate as a songbird, or appear as wise as an owl, he was sly like a fox, and led the world as a lion through World War II. Thank you.